Hey guys, Johnny here from Ecommerce SEO. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, make sure you hit the subscribe button below, and you can also head on over to our free private Facebook group where we've got plenty of great discussion going on over there about SEO in general and e-commerce and Shopify SEO. Now this horrible graph you're looking at here, in this video today, I just want to sort of walk through a site, and this is a site we're now working on for a client. And you can see these horrible graphs. So what's happened here is in end of November 2020, early December, so lines up with the quite large Google Core update that rolled out in December 2020, that this site was slammed and got a major suppression, major penalty off the back of that Core web update or Google update. So here's the organic traffic leading up to that, and then it just literally went off a cliff and lost 95 to 96% of its traffic. Then also we can see the number of keywords it was ranking for, and then that's just disappeared as well. So this happened in December. Then in February they contacted us and asked whether we can help improve things. It's obviously a challenge when you see data like this, but we've recovered quite a lot of sites before, and it's just a matter of digging in deep and finding out what's actually going on, and then trying to turn things around. It obviously takes time if there's a lot of work to do, and then also sometimes you won't get the recovery anyway, depending on the market you're in, etc. So this is what we were sort of faced with this particular site. Now I'll just go through, obviously can't tell you what the URL is or what the site is. I can tell you it's in the health niche, and I'll just bring on over my other screen and show you. This is just an article from SEMrush about the December 2020 Core update, and it just talks about the winners and losers here, and we can see that the most affected industries were health, real estate, and law and government. So this certainly is in the health niche. It's a your money, your life type niche. So it obviously had determined through this update that this site was not worthy of ranking for any of these terms. The other part of what I want to discuss in this video is how we're starting to see a recovery now. And even though this looks like a small movement upwards, when I show you some of the other keyword data in a second, you'll see that it's actually quite significant. And my predictions are we're in the midst of a recovery, if not a full recovery, at least a partial recovery. And I'll explain why I think that, and then sort of what we've done. So as I mentioned, the site was in a health niche, quite a large health niche, but very much a niche. So a not a sub niche, but a niche of a sort of a larger health market. Now, when we dug into the site, it had all sorts of problems. So I believe this site was going to start to have problems and gradually decrease anyway without this update. It only sells, it's a Shopify store for starters, so it's an e-commerce store, but it only sells sort of one main product, but then there's a few little accessories, and overall there's probably 6 or 7 products. So a small site in terms of the amount of products. It had a lot of content, so we're talking 400 to 500 pages. The problem was, and still there is quite a bit of it on there, is that there was a lot of thin content, so a lot of content with 1 or 2 paragraphs, grammatical errors, duplicate content, so content talking about exactly the same topic, and again that was thin content. There was minimal internal linking, so even though there was thin content, there wasn't much internal linking at all. There was, on most articles, there was a button linking back to the product page, and that was about it. The content itself, no strategy in how the content was actually created. So just sort of plucking, it almost seems like just plucking topics within the market and just writing about them, and then without any sort of strategy on how that content comes together. So speaking to the client, I mean, they had writers and are fully aware now that, probably the strategy and their quality of writing wasn't good enough, certainly not for this particular market. So that was number one. There was a lot of technical issues with the site as well, lots of broken links, all that sort of simple stuff. And then with EAT and being in the health niche, there was no real indication that this particular product and this business was an expert in the field, where in fact they do quite well with paid advertising, generate quite a bit of revenue and good number of sales, and the product converts, and a lot of testimonials, a lot of information out there about the product. So actually, and also FDA approved. So certainly had that ability to show to Google that they have trust and expertise. So there was that we sort of worked through as well. So the first thing we looked at was dealing with the content issue. Sorry, I should go back. So we ran a deep crawl, just looked at all the sort of small technical issues, broken links, orphan pages. A lot of orphan pages, obviously, because a lot of this content had no internal linking. What it did have, though, was on a lot of the pages, it had a sidebar with every single article listed. So all 400 or 500 articles listed in the sidebar. So there was over-optimized anchor text just from that. And then there was a lot of pages that weren't in there, so they were orphan. So it had those sort of issues. So removed that sidebar, and we've just created like a little more bit more strategic with a HTML sitemap page, structured in a way where sort of created that's good for a user and also for Google to crawl. So we've got internal linking now through the HTML sitemap, but it's also good for users like in a structured menu setup. So we did that, and then we went through and we've basically completed a full content audit, and probably 40% of that content we've determined that it's going to go. So either with a 301 redirect to a relevant article if they've got links, if that article's got any links or traffic to a certain threshold. 301 those. We've actually removed some articles altogether and left them as 404s that just had no traffic, no sort of quality whatsoever. Haven't done any canalization, just 301s or removing the content. So we're sort of, I suppose we're probably 30 or 40% of the way through that. So we've removed a lot of articles, a lot of content, and then created pillar content. So 3 core articles for each subtopic within the main topic. So for example, we would have causes of a particular problem, the treatment for a particular problem. We're talking health here, of course, and they would be the core articles, and then we've got supporting articles that we're using within that cluster. So niching down a little bit deeper into longer tail keywords for those supporting articles, and then contextually linking back to those core articles. And then those core articles obviously link back to the product page, but we're also linking back to the product page contextually from these other supporting articles as well, but just trying to keep the clusters a little tighter. So we've created these pillars now, and we've got this pseudo silo happening, which is starting to come together. So there's still a lot more to do. Like I said, we're probably only 30 or 40% of the way through, but already, and then we're making sure we've got our internal linking happening as well, but already we're starting to see this recovery as what we can see on the screen here, and I'll show you some more examples in a second. Sorry, and I was going to say before, so we've got treatment, and so causes, treatment, and so what is it, causes, and then treatment. They're sort of the 3 pillars within those sub-markets, if that is topics, if that makes sense. Also, we looked at, there wasn't much internal linking anyway, but looked at where the most powerful pages were that existed, and now we're going through and re-optimizing all that content as well. So using Surfer, now that we've created that pillar content, we're re-optimizing existing content. Most of them have to have a lot more content added to those particular pages. Structure them correctly, internal links, and we're working through that process now. So that's an ongoing process that's going to take a few more months to complete because there's a lot there. In terms of EAT, as I spoke about before, really improved the schema, the organization schema on the homepage. Page schema we haven't really looked at yet, but we'll get to that. Simple things like adding an FDA link to the FDA page on the FDA site to, show to Google within the schema that it's actually legitimate. I think that's certainly played a part, and also just really got a little deeper into the schema itself. So a lot more knows about elements, same as that, can really help that process. Also linked out from the FAQ page on the site to the FDA as well. So, that again, a lot of it is just going back to the core foundation, important elements of a quality site. And, to be honest, probably there was a little bit of reluctance of removing content, both from us and also from the client. But when you go and look at the content that's there and it's had no traffic in 12 months, and it's just, there's no reason to have it there, a lot of it we decided just to either throw one or remove. We did change a few URLs, which is always, again, a little bit risky, but you can see where the traffic was anyway. It was completely hammered. That at this point we figured that if we could optimize the URLs on some of the existing pages, it could only be beneficial, and that's helped as well. So now this is just the last 30 days. You can see it's just heading upwards. So we've had more than a doubling of traffic in the last 30 days, which is nice to see. So this is Google Search Console as well. So again, it doesn't look like much is happening yet, but it's the same trend, and impressions are coming back, and also clicks. Just a horrible graph from when it dropped off a cliff. Keywords, so individual keywords. So you can see that obviously that's where the hammering and the suppression happened. Dropped off a cliff, and then this is an individual keyword that's coming back, and these are good quality keywords, like 1,000 searches per month plus. Back onto page 1. Here's another one very similar. This one was sort of creeping back, but obviously, at this same point had a big spike here. That's actually that's not the schema for this site. That's another image. So just sort of wanted to go through and explain a bit what we did with this site to try and, to at least initiate the recovery, which is happening now. And then we're only, like I said, 30 or 40% through that content audit process and fixing the content. So once that's done, I'm reasonably confident we're going to come back, if not to where it was, certainly close, but it's going to just obviously bring that revenue back from organic traffic for this particular store. And then because it's such a good niche anyway, and the product converts so well, then we can just really nail some bigger keywords and just continually push the traffic that we can drive from this site. So, okay, I hope that was insightful. Just sort of showed, like, a lot of people talk about recoveries that there's no point, or it is really difficult, and it is difficult. And if you've never done it before, you just don't know whether it's going to work or not. And sometimes it still doesn't work. But again, if you go back to the foundations and look at what's is not correct and hasn't been done on the site, then you can start to get these recoveries. And it's daunting, and you shouldn't just walk away, because you at least give it a crack. Like I said, we only sort of started doing this in February. It's been 4 or 5 months, and that's a long time for the client to wait, and also for us to see results. But you just go through that process, and you can see the result here. And look, if we had more resources and the budget was higher, we could certainly punch out a lot more of the content, or fixing that content in a shorter period of time, and that certainly helped. But obviously there's realities of business, etc. So Okay, thanks. Hope that was insightful. See you in the next video.